Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for yet another Premier League preview ahead of West Ham United versus Chelsea tomorrow with the early kickoff, 12:30. Not usually a great kickoff time for us. Also not a particularly great ground for us to go to. So let's see how that one goes. These are exactly the type of games where we always think, yeah, we should be beating these lot. And then we think about how we played, especially at their place over the last few years. And then you're like, maybe we shouldn't be beating them because we never seem to. So let's talk about that. How much of should we be beating them? How much are we struggling simply because we never win at London Stadium? We will get into that. We will also today be doing a performance tier list of the whole squad for this season so far. Now, so I'm aware Jadon Sancho's only played 45 minutes. Some players haven't played at all, but that's the whole point. I will like to maybe every couple of months, maybe once a month or whatever, maybe try to do this again and see if anything has dramatically changed or whatever. So I think that should be quite interesting. And unfortunately, we have a bit more somewhat negative injury news. Not in particular that it was anything new negative, but the negative bit is that we still have no return date for Reece James. Now, Enzo Fernandez is back from his illness, same as Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Romeo Lavia and Malagusto are somewhat back in training, but not yet ready to play. But yeah, Reece James, still no return date. We'll get into everything. And first and foremost, Charlie, first of all, thank you for joining me once again. I appreciate it very, very much. Just to quickly touch on it, I just asked you before we went live as well. We were here about a week ago. Speaking about Bournemouth versus Chelsea, you were there, obviously. In hindsight, it wasn't a great performance, was it? But in the end, obviously, getting the win late on with the second half performance from Sancho, in the end, we kind of seemed to take a lot of optimism and momentum out of that game, as bad as the performance was. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to get the 3 points out of it. What I was pleased with is that for a change, we actually managed to play shit and win a game and actually grind the result out, which is a positive. You know, I've said many times, yeah, it's all very well, yeah, take more of your chances, score more goals, but this team has got to learn to win ugly and got to learn to know how to win games 1-0. And that's what we did. You know, probably I'd say our worst defensive display of the season so far, yet we kept a clean sheet somehow.
Yeah.
So that I think positives in terms of obviously Jadon Sancho, positives in terms of we didn't play well and we managed to win a game and we kept a clean sheet. Other than that, I didn't really take too many more positives from it. But it's about time we learned how to grind results out, not playing well, because you're not going to play well every game. You know, we played well against Palace and we didn't win. We probably played 10 times worse in this one and won. That's just kind of how it's going to go, in my opinion. But yeah, pleased to get the 3 points, mate. But there wasn't really much else to shout home about other than that.
No, there wasn't. There really wasn't. I mean, it was kind of Sancho and then Nkunku goal. Everybody else and everything else wasn't particularly great. I was also surprised by Maresca post-game, how he was saying, like, we played essentially two different halves. And I was like, I didn't feel like the whole second half was so dramatically better. Maybe like the last 20 minutes or something.
It was better. It was better,
yeah, but still not good.
No, it wasn't amazing. No, absolutely not.
But really, once Disasi wasn't playing right back anymore, that's when we got better.
Yeah, that's when it got a bit better. Yeah, first half was dreadful. I'll tell you what, if we turn up tomorrow and play in the first half like that, we're done. Particularly the likes of Kudos, Bowen, Paqueta, we're finished. I know you're not going to play well every week, but you cannot turn up against better opposition and play like that, because you'll get taken apart.
Exactly. I mean, you touched on Jadon Sancho there. Let's focus on him. Obviously, we'll get into him when we do the predicted 11 or our teams and whatever, but it will be pretty straightforward. I think we expect him to start and we both want him to start. But just because that's maybe not quite enough to speak on him, what did you make of his debut? And also remind me, I'm not sure if we spoke about it beforehand in as much detail, what you made of the transfer as a whole. Because obviously, and I tweeted this the day after the game as well, or maybe the day of the game, he kind of rocked my world a little bit. And I know that's a bit of an extreme way of phrasing it, but he kind of did, because, and I saw a lot of people making that comparison or you know, tweeting that thought, let's say, that like, we haven't seen a left wing performance like that since Hazard left. And by that, by no means nobody is by that saying that Sancho is as good as Hazard, let alone will be as good as Hazard. No one is saying that. But we haven't seen a left winger dominate a game for Chelsea kind of since then. I mean, unless I'm forgetting like a one-off Raheem Sterling game or something, because obviously there was a good period in between where we didn't really play an outright winger, under Thomas Tuchel in particular. But that was a strong performance. Did you expect such a performance from Sancho? Because I didn't.
No, didn't expect it. Absolutely not. I expected him, to maybe, have some sort of impact. You always hope that players on the bench can come on and do something. But no, I'd be lying if I sat here and said that I was expecting Sancho to do that. Because I wasn't. He's not. That's the first time he's played this season. If we're being totally honest, he's not really been great for 3 years now. At United, he struggled for 3 seasons.
It was decent second half of last season, to be fair, at Dortmund.
At Dortmund, yeah, but at Dortmund he played well second half of last season. Granted, but I mean, in generally speaking, like maybe 2.5 years now, he struggled for form. He's had issues, and he's still only 24, and it's about providing him an environment in which he can sort of thrive in. And I think one thing that really impressed me is kind of how he almost seems very grateful for this opportunity. It almost feels like, particularly the words that he was saying afterwards, thanking the coach, the coaching staff and people at the training ground and all that sort of thing. I think he knows that even though he's 24, this might be one of his last opportunities at a big football club, and this needs to work for him. So I really liked the way that he spoke afterwards. And yeah, it was just impressive in terms of the way how he was direct, taking players on, his way of pass, link up with Cucurella. And it's just refreshing to have someone that gets the ball and their first instinct is to go forwards with it, take a man on rather than just sort of recycle possession, which we see, in my opinion, we see way too often from a lot of wide players these days. Their first thought is to keep hold of the ball rather. I don't mind if you give the ball away if you show intent to do something. I haven't got a problem with that. So yeah, impressed, mate. Impressed for sure. But again, as I said after the game, let's enjoy it for what it is, because we have seen players have very good debuts. Exactly this. This is exactly what I referenced afterwards, saying, let's enjoy it for what it is, but let's keep our feet on the ground here, because Mudryk looked very, very good against Liverpool in his debut, and it's not really happened for him yet.
Do you think this good, though? Because I was going to reply to Ashraf and saying, Mudryk looked much better in that debut than usually since, but I still don't think you can quite compare it to what Sancho did.
We were excited there. Let's be honest, mate. We come away from that, and people were raving about it. The pace, the directness. Obviously, didn't get an assist or anything like that, and it wasn't maybe a game-winning contribution or whatnot. But this was good from Sancho. It was really good, and it shows a lot of promise there. And if he can, obviously, he deserves to start off the back of that performance. I think obviously him and Neto probably going, let's say him and Mudryk probably for that left-hand side, maybe Neto, although I think Maresca saying today that Neto and Madueke are going to be more the right-hand side options, which I thought was quite interesting. So that for me, there's no reason why Sancho can't lock down that left wing position, providing he sort of keeps performing on a consistent basis. But it was definitely a pleasant surprise. But let's not pretend that that he hasn't got that in his locker, because he does. This is a very, very talented footballer. One of the best around when he was at Borussia Dortmund. So there is a player in there, but as with so many players at the football club right now, can we unlock the ability within them? And that's going to be the big question now.
No, 100%. And you're spot on. And even Ashraf, obviously, bringing up Mudryk's debut. I'm not sure if you meant it as in we've seen someone as good at left wing, or if you meant don't lose your mind over it. It was just a debut. Look at Mudryk. I don't know quite how you meant it, but regardless, it's kind of a somewhat fair point either way. But why it impressed me so much, and sure, it was nice touches. Everything was like smooth. Everything was crisp. Everything worked. Whether it was these runs, whether it was these passes, whether it was the decision of when to take a player on, when to lay it off. Like even there, you said, right, you want the player to take his man on. If he loses the ball sometimes, that's okay. That's part of the game. But I mean, I would say the ideal is a balance. Like sometimes you should pass it back and retain possession, but obviously often I do want you to just take the man on. But what was so impressive about me, because I felt for multiple seasons now, we've had the issue on the left, whether it was Sterling there, whether it was Mudryk there, whether it was Pedro Neto in the first half or Pedro Neto against Crystal Palace in the first half, where we have these players playing left wing. And seemingly just nothing happens on the left wing. Like the left wing seems to not even be involved in our game.
Yeah.
And as soon as Sancho came on, that was all of a sudden different. And none of the others had ever done that different. No Sterling, no Mudryk, no Neto. And I can't even put into words exactly why that happened. I don't really have an explanation for it. But that's for me what changed the most, because pretty much like you almost Madueke became not invisible, but not because he didn't do anything, but more because all of a sudden we also use the left side while we're almost used to pretty much solely attacking down the right-hand side with the winger itself. I'm not saying we never use the left, but in terms of giving the ball to the winger in a position for him to take a man on, we pretty much always just do that on the right. And for this one, it was all of a sudden different. So, well, Puzzle TV, we only started 11 minutes ago, so you haven't missed much. But appreciate you for tuning in. Shout out to everybody else in the chat as well, Josh, Jimmy, and Nemo as well. But yeah, I mean, Charlie, did you notice that as well? Like, do you have an explanation for that? Or maybe I'm making more out of something that isn't there. But I've always felt that for years that we just don't really know how to get something out of the left. And obviously different managers and stuff, so you can say we just have a different manager now. But like I say, the same applied to Neto in the first half, or for Neto against Palace, or for Mudryk when he then came on for Neto against Palace. It just, I don't know. But all of a sudden with Sancho, it just felt different. Like you say, obviously, let's wait if that's the case all the time and every game. But just the fact that he was even able to make that happen once already gives me a bit more hope for that it will go better after that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, I think I don't think there's any denying that left-hand side has been a problem. You know, we have struggled down there. We've struggled for someone to perform in that position on a consistent basis and make an impact. I don't think there's any denying that. And maybe Sancho could be the answer to that. But I think, you know, as we've acknowledged, there still needs to be a lot. We need to see a lot more before we can sort of come to that as a definitive answer. But I don't know why the left-hand side has seemingly been a problem. You know, you can have, you know, both sides equally as good as each other, or not such a big gap between the two sides. That's going to make such a big difference. And, you know, you do notice sometimes that, you know, when a game is very focused down one side, you do almost become a little bit one-dimensional. So if we can have both options where, do you know what, we have got equal threats down both sides, that's only going to be a positive for us, because, as I say, it becomes easy for teams to work out a little bit, where you see it in loads of times, not just Chelsea, but other teams as well, where everything's going down one side. You know, okay, eventually you might make a breakthrough, but if you can have a two-pronged threat, you're going to have so much more of a chance to win games and do damage. And that, for me, is what we need to do. And hopefully Sancho can be the answer to that.
100%. And obviously what I put in the title, what I put in the thumbnail is kind of, do we start with Nkunku or do we start with Jackson? I will want to wait with that a little bit to our kind of final conclusion to that question. But I do wonder if having a more dangerous left side makes it a more valid option to play someone up front who isn't an out-and-out striker. Because obviously when we only had the right-hand side to attack essentially, and obviously the middle, it was... I felt like whenever we played Nkunku, anyone that wasn't a real striker up front, it just never worked at all. But I feel like maybe if you have a left and the right, maybe you can also, it's easy to play a striker that isn't an out-and-out striker. Again, we'll get into that conversation. We will soon get into our performance tier list for the season. Before that, I want to quickly talk about one thing, because we spoke about this already last week, Charlie, didn't we? And at the end of the day, it's not directly affecting the game because it's not crazy news. But on Reece James, Maresca in the press conference said today, unfortunately, we don't have an idea at the moment when Reece will return. He then also said he's been very unlucky. We plan to change him after 65 minutes in the game that he got injured, but he got injured in minute 62 or 63. So sure, that is a bit unlucky, I guess. But Charlie, and we already spoke about it last week, so I don't want to get into it for too long and in too much detail. But even still, it's just, how can we not have a return date? Like, how can we? I mean, to be fair, last time it wasn't the manager that gave us this return date in the summer. It was the media that said he's expected to be back for the Bournemouth game. And obviously, he wasn't anywhere near that. But then we're sat here now, a week after the Bournemouth game, and the manager is saying, we don't know. We essentially do not have a return date. Now, on the one hand, sure, be careful, be cautious, take his time. And I would be super supportive of that and not particularly critical of it if we hadn't done that with him for the last two seasons already. Every time he came back over the last two seasons, except maybe in, like, you know, the first time he came back under Potter, we were always very cautious. He always seemed to be like in training for like at least 2 weeks. And then remember last season, he played like 10 minutes there, and then he played 20 minutes before he got even to start, and then only played a half anyway. But to not have a return date, I don't know, maybe Maresca just didn't want to give one just in case it gets delayed again, and then he gets more scrutiny because of that. But this also doesn't come across particularly well, does it?
No, it doesn't come across particularly well, but I almost feel like it's a little bit of a lose-lose situation because obviously if he says, oh, you know, he's going to be back at this date and he's not, then it's like, well, what's happened there? What's going on here? And then if you say this, you sort of think, well, what the fuck's going on anyway? So like, it's kind of you can't really win with what comments you go with. It is a concern for sure. We know this now. We know it's nothing new here. It's a concern. What's going on with Reece? What really is the issues here? The fact that he's not even in training yet is mad, in my opinion. There's being cautious and there's being cautious. And you know, I mean, I remember when this news first broke before the Inter game. It was like he came back from America and something happened in training and it was minor. But from these comments here, it almost sounds like this, whatever it is, happened in the Real Madrid game. It must have happened against Real Madrid because
he didn't start against City already, right?
No. He didn't. No, this must have happened against Real Madrid because otherwise, because that was the last time he played. So it has to have happened in that Real Madrid game. But the reporting when it first happened was, it's happened when he come back from America in training. I mean, at the end of it, doesn't really matter when it happened. It's happened. To be honest, at this point, mate, I'm sort of I'm not writing him off. I'm not saying sell him, but we're at a point now where he's already missed 6 games this season. It's going to be 7 with tomorrow's one. We're not going to see him before the international break, so that's going to be 10. That's going to be 10 or 11 games missed already this season. But when you add those extra 5 on, including tomorrow's one, and how many times can we say that, you know, this, look, we all know that Reece is a phenomenal player, can have a massive impact for this team. But it comes to a point where you have to sort of think about things and think, what do we do about this? What is the solution to this situation right now? And I don't have the answers, because you can't have a situation where you've basically got an absent captain for the majority of the season. And you can't have a situation where you're paying someone a lot of money and he's available for a few weeks every year. Like something's got to give here. The big thing for me is, right, let's get him back. Let's see what happens when he starts playing again. And then we're going to have a better idea. When he starts playing again, if he gets injured and has another setback, then I think there's more of a serious conversation to be had surrounding it. Right now, it is sort of semi-serious, but I'm giving him sort of the benefit to get fit again, and then we see what happens. But if he gets injured again when he comes back this time, then I think that changes the picture completely.
Yeah, no, I do agree in a sense. It's just, I just wish, and I know I said this last week already, but I just wish for more transparency and more openness from the club. I just don't understand. Like,
they've stopped putting the injury list now, aren't they, before games?
That is true. Now that you say it, I forgot about that completely.
Yeah, I noticed that the other week. They don't do the injury list anymore. So unless
it's good. I think it was always a bit silly that we did that, but
at least we knew who was out.
Yeah, no, I guess. Yeah, but because they gave us no information in it other than he is out and he is not, it was kind of useless. But what I was trying to get at is, I would just love to know, which leg is it? Is it the leg he had surgery on? Is it the other one? Why not get a team doctor to give a little comment? Like, for example, he had surgery on this leg, then it's kind of normal that you kind of overstrain the other leg a little bit. So it's kind of natural after surgery to have a few small injury niggles. But as the months and maybe a year after surgery goes on, then it should be. Then you should see the benefits of the surgery. Or is it the same leg of the surgery? Maybe that's also normal. We don't know. Like, I'm no doctor. None of us are doctors. So why can't, like, again, obviously don't tell us all the details, but give us something, because we're all just speculating here. All it leads to is abuse, partly probably racial abuse from some idiots in the fan base. Like, just give us a little bit more, that we don't have to sit here and essentially everybody losing faith in our captain. Like, give us something. Maybe there isn't anything positive to say, maybe, but I'm trying to be optimistic here, and I'm saying, and I'm hoping that there would be something positive to say that they just don't tell us about, which I don't get why, but yeah, that's the only thing I would hope for. But yeah, Reece, just get fit, please, and then stay fit, for the love of God. That's all I'm asking, man. That's all I'm asking. But Charlie, I think it would be quite interesting to get into our performance tier list for the season. I have every squad member in here, including Jadon Sancho, who I added. There's also Kellerman in here, who, not sure why he's even mentioned there. I know on the Chelsea website he is, but still, I don't really understand. Especially when Josh Achampong isn't here, which, again, why is the one there but not the other? Makes no sense to me. But I thought it would be quite interesting Can I not? Yeah, there you go. To go through each player and see how we feel they've done so far this season. Now, obviously, there will be a lot of NAs down here who just haven't played, including Marcus Bettinelli, of course. But we start off with good old Big Benoit Badiashile. Charlie, why don't I start with you?
Well, he's only played Conference League. He's just played Conference League. That's it.
Exactly. And I mean, to some extent, maybe it is a bit harsh, but to some extent, I'm like, we're fairly early into the season. And for some of these players, the reason they haven't played more is because they weren't better in preseason. So I'm at least partly also including preseason in this a little bit as well. But I think would you put him in awful? Would you put him in poor?
I was going to say poor.
Yeah.
Based on what I've seen, he's a really strange one for me because he was so good when he first came in for that 6 months under Potter, and then he picked up that injury at the back end of when Lampard was in charge. Obviously, coming back last season, struggled for rhythm, getting back into the swing of things, made a lot of errors, and that's just carried over. And I wouldn't be surprised, mate, if he was one that was sold next summer. There's definitely potential in that scenario. But yeah, I would say poor, and it's really strange. So I don't know what's happened to him because he's not anything like the player that we signed.
No. He isn't, and it's super strange because, like you're saying, that first 6 months, he looked almost always pretty much unbelievable. And now, when you see him play, you're like, he seems stressed whenever he has the ball. He doesn't seem to know how to defend. He doesn't seem to know when to be cautious, when to be aggressive. He's just struggling a lot. I mean, Puzzle TV says awful. Honestly, I think there's a case to be made for this. I don't want to be super negative, so that's why if Charlie and I disagree by one, we're always going to go for the higher one. Obviously, if Charlie now said average and I said awful, we'd put him into poor. But if we are both saying just one apart, let's put him in the higher one. Just, let's try to not be negative Nancy's all the time. But let's move on from Badiashile. I just hope he gets better. But at the moment, I also don't really see when he gets game time outside of the Conference League. And if you don't even do well there, my bloody hell. I agree with you, Charlie. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's one of those that ends up getting sold.
He'll play Tuesday night against Barrow, I would have thought.
Yeah, true. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course. Cup games as well. That makes sense. We move on to Moises Caicedo, who, I struggle with him. I always struggle with him. I tweeted this the other day.
He's been good.
Yeah. Now, I would probably put him in good as well, but I tweeted this the other day that I always struggle with him a little bit where I'm like, I watch a game and I'm like, yeah, Caicedo's been decent. Then I look at the stats and I'm like, sometimes they're a bit better, sometimes they're a bit worse. And I'm like, okay, that kind of represents what I was thinking. But then I go on Twitter and I see half of my timeline talking about how amazing Caicedo was. And I'm like, sorry, did you all see something different? Because I'm not even saying they're all wrong. I'm saying I want to know what they see so I can also look out for this and also praise him more because people think I'm this negative guy, but I want to be positive. I want to. So I wish people would tell me he does all these things great because my expectation of Caicedo is quite high because I know he can be good defensively. He's a great tackler. He's a great runner. He's got a great engine. But I also know he has abilities going forward. He has a great pass in him. He can shoot from distance. He can run with the ball. He can do all of those things. And because he's so good at so many things, when he just has an average game where he has a few good tackles and a few simple passes, I don't come out here and praise him because I'm like, that's all right, but I know you can do much better than that, even aside from the price tag. I just know he has the capability to do just way more. And then when in preseason or even against Man City, you see Lavia play, and I'm like, there's been very few games where I was as impressed with Caicedo as I was with Lavia against City. But, and again, maybe there is something in me where I'm like, I'm not noticing the good things about him. I genuinely don't know. But
I think he's more one of them for me, mate. Do you have that
issue as well sometimes with Caicedo, bro?
Sometimes, look, I think he's played well in the majority of the games this season, but I think maybe some people perhaps over exaggerate how well he's done. I'm not saying there's like that he's played badly, but maybe they just go a little bit overboard. I think he's one of them for me that when he doesn't play, that's when you'll notice what he does. It's not always when he's playing you sort of notice it. A little bit like Makalele. You didn't really used to notice him that much when he was playing. He just did his job and got on with it. But as soon as he was out the team, you knew exactly what he brought to the table because it was when he was no longer there. And I think it's maybe a little bit similar with Caicedo. And I do agree with the chat as well that like once Lavia gets back in and maybe Lavia's playing alongside him, we'll start to then see, maybe his game develop a little bit more as well.
I mean, maybe because that's one of the things I'm saying. Like, people are saying he's having these great games, but he's not really offering anything going forward. Now, sure, he doesn't have anyone next to him, but against Bournemouth, he did. Against Bournemouth, Caicedo wasn't the more defensive. Veiga was. So that's why I'm like, surely against Bournemouth, I should have expected a bit more of the going forward stuff. Because if he plays with Lavia, that's also going to fall on Caicedo. Because, like Vic says here, Caicedo is the only functioning midfielder at the club without Lavia. It's not that complicated. I get that. But the only functioning midfielder doesn't mean he gets a 7 or 8 out of 10 every game. That could still be a 6 and still be better than all the other ones. You know, the one thing doesn't exclude the other, is all I'm saying. And again, I want to be like, please tell me, like, I don't know. I mean, Fire Red says, I think when you look at him and Enzo, you see how much poorly Enzo makes him look better. I don't fully understand. Maybe try to reword, or am I too stupid to read? See how much poorly Enzo plays makes him look better. Aha, you're saying Enzo is so bad that it makes Caicedo look better. But Enzo didn't play last game, so I'm not sure if that logic necessarily applies here. But I would overall still probably put him in good. I'd also say it wouldn't be like super far off if we put him in average, but I think good is fine. We move on to Casadei. Obviously, he hasn't played, so NA it is. Carney Chukwuemeka, I would hope he would get more games, but he's also not.
Bro,
so,
he's done. He's done. He's not like he's done, mate. He's not going to play.
If he doesn't start against Barrow, like,
he's finished.
He's more than done.
Yeah, no, he's absolutely finito. If he doesn't get any minutes against Barrow, he's finished.
Did you see the clip of Noni? You know, Noni did like some sort of interview with Sky Sports, and you know,
so he's the most underrated guy.
Yeah, and he was saying like he is so good, people just don't know how good he is, and he was like, what you will see eventually how good this guy is, and it's just like, now obviously they're really good friends and everything, but I'm like, how can a teammate sit there and say this about a player, but the manager doesn't want it? Now, obviously, and I know part of the problem is too many players in his position. Obviously, I'm aware. But even still, it's just like, how can Madueke think so highly of him and the manager doesn't even include him in the squad? Like, it's just, like, again, he's behind Dewsbury Hall. And you know how bad you've got to be behind Dewsbury Hall. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, obviously, in terms of, for this one, simple NA. Levi Coble then. Does he?
I think he's. I wouldn't say elite. I'd say good. I think he's been really good. But I think elite is maybe a little bit too much in my opinion.
The question is, does anyone get into elite other than Sancho's second half against Bournemouth?
Maybe not. But yeah, look, mate. I think Cole's been good. I think he's been our best defender this season so far. He's definitely maturing as a player, growing into a leader. His passing's looking very good as well. He's defending well. I would put him in. I'd put him in good, but that could be elite if he carries on playing how he's been doing. But yeah, I've been impressed with him this season for sure.
I do agree, and maybe we've still conceded a few too many goals to put any defenders in elite, to be honest. So I think good is probably about right. Just quickly, Charlie, do you agree with me and a lot of others that in the absence of Reece James, Coble should be the captain and not Enzo, and especially not Caicedo? And again, I'm not hating on Caicedo. I'm just saying he's too shy to be a captain.
I would. Look, I think the leadership group is clear. The four-man leadership group is obviously Enzo, Caicedo, James, and Colwell. I would say, in my opinion, just because probably he knows the club better and his English is better, which is no disrespect to Enzo or Caicedo, it would maybe make more sense for Colwell to be captain when Reece is not about. But maybe Maresca sees more, better leadership in Enzo Fernandez at this point in time. But for me, I would suggest that when Reece isn't playing, I probably would give it to Colwell, just because I think his communication skills are probably slightly better, and I think he just understands the club a little bit more. But look, I mean, whoever it is, it's not the end of the world if it is Enzo or whatever. But I do agree with you on Caicedo. He doesn't really strike me as a captain type. I know you can lead in different ways and whatnot, but like if you said, who do you reckon's captain material? He'd be one of the last ones I'd suggest in the squad. Exactly. to be honest. If Cole, I would be more inclined to name Colwell captain when Reece is not available, but we know it's going to be Enzo. So.
Yeah, no, we do. I just think, especially with obviously a few of the groans and lack of satisfaction or happiness at the bridge, especially, I feel like with how the bridge is and how the people that go to the bridge every week are, making Colwell the captain would actually also help in the atmosphere in the ground.
Might do.
I genuinely think that. So I think it's also a bit of a missed trick there for me from Maresca that he's not giving it to Cole, purely from that perspective. But again, maybe I'm making more out of that than it is. Cucurella then, does he stretch into elite?
I'd say no. I think he's still good. I think he's done well. He's performed to a good standard, but there's been nothing like exceptional. He's just performed to a good level, which is kind of what we expect from him now. So yeah, I like what I've seen from him. I mean, he inverts well. He's defending well at the moment. He's linking up well with the winger.
He's
and
celebrating
stuff,
in Anthony Taylor's face. So.
Yeah. I would say good for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think he's done enough to warrant going into that elite category because there's not been any standout performances where I look, wow, Cucurella was unbelievable. He's just been solid pretty much every week, which is what you want. Sort of a bit like Dave used to do, just a 7 out of 10 every week. Nothing spectacular, but nothing shit.
Yeah, very good. I basically completely agree. Nothing else I can add to that. If I'm being honest. I get to Dewsbury Hall. Now, you might disagree with me, but I'm putting him in awful.
I think that's a bit harsh.
Maybe. But I just think it's the stupidest signing we've ever made ever. Like, I know there's Lukaku, who cost crazy money and then abused us and disrespected us. I know there's also Kepa, who we're now putting out on loan to Bournemouth with a 5 million release clause. I know. But we're literally talking about Carney Chukwuemeka can't get in the squad, and we decided to spend 30 million on Dewsbury Hall. I just do not understand it at all. And he looked off the pace against Servette. Like, how is that possible? How can you look off the pace against Servette, man? Like, maybe I'm too harsh. Where would you put him? Would you put him in poor? Would you put him in average? Where would you put him?
I think he's been average, to be honest. I mean, what's he done? He's played against Servette. He come on against Wolves, and he come on against Palace, I think, did he? No, he didn't. He came on against Wolves. He's played against Wolves and he's played against Servette. That's it in both games. He's obviously didn't come on against City. I don't think he played against City. And then he's not played a lot. I think he's been average. I'd say that average is fair. We can put him in poor if that's the kind of the middle between the two, so he can go in there. But I think he's done okay, mate. I wasn't expecting anything amazing from him anyway when we signed him. I was just expecting, just a squad player that is going to do a job in a few cup games and maybe start a few league games or come on from the bench. I think he's better than what people think he is.
I agree with that. That's also what I expected, but he hasn't provided that.
No, not yet, but I think it's still very early days. I think he's been average, but if you think awful, then we'll just meet in the middle on poor.
Yeah, I mean, when I say awful, there's certainly part of it that in justification, like very little games, but I'm like, we're judging very little games. So to have anyone in the awful tier is probably going to be quite difficult. We'll get to it. Maybe one or two do meet that criteria. But yeah, just looking at it, he played obviously the 90 against Servette twice, 14 minutes against Wolves, and he actually played 24 minutes against City. He came on in that game.
He did come on in that game, yeah.
Yeah, so again, it's mostly I'm going off the Servette games, and I'm also going off the preseason games. I'll be perfectly honest, but it's not his fault directly. So that's why I'm actually okay with you saying like, no, he was better than awful and stuff, because him as an individual, maybe not. But as a signing, if we did ranking signings, I would still put him most firmly in awful. But yeah, let's not get too hung up on it. People will call me too negative again. Is that Disasi? Yes, it is. Disasi, where would you put him? Does he go in awful purely for the Bournemouth game?
Yeah, awful. Yeah, I think he does. That's the only Premier League minutes he's played, and he wasn't exactly any great shakes in the Conference League either when he in the Servette game. So, yeah, bro, I think he's in awful based on that Bournemouth performance. Basically, it was dreadful.
Yeah, it was. I mean, how much of putting him into awful is also a little bit unfair or harsh because he's playing at right back when every blind idiot.
Oh yeah, of course. That obviously comes into it because he's playing at right back. But I'll be honest, mate. It might be a bit of a bold shout. I don't think Disasi is going to play any minutes at centre back this season in the league.
But how? What does he do so badly at centre back that he becomes a valid option at right back, but so not an option at centre back? It just I don't really.
Yeah,
is he that much worse than Tosin at centre back? Like, I'm not saying maybe Tosin is a bit better, but I don't think there's much between them.
No, maybe not. But it's clear that Maresca thinks that Tosin is obviously ahead of him. And it might be a bit of a bold claim. And obviously, if we get injuries, he might do. But if people stay fit for the majority of the season, for me, I don't think Disasi plays any minutes in the Premier League at centre back.
Yeah, maybe not. Well, it's a big if everyone stays fit. But
that's a big if. But that's my sort of bold claim. I don't think Disasi is going to play any minutes at centre back in the league.
Fair dues. Yeah, no fair dues. Let me just get up the next one here on my app so I have it ready. Joao Felix. I put him just in average for now so I can open this. He played 29 minutes against Bournemouth. He played 32 minutes against Palace. And he played 22 minutes against Wolves. Obviously got himself the goal against Wolves. Against Palace, I honestly didn't really notice him. And against Bournemouth,
he was average again. I think average is fair, mate. You know, and that's probably because the performance against the goal against Wolves probably puts him in there. Otherwise, I thought it was poor against Palace, and I thought it was poor when he came on against Bournemouth. You know, we need to see more from him. Basically, I'm still of the opinion that, you know, the idea of Felix is far better than the reality of him. And I'm yet to be changed on that. I want to be changed on that, but so far the early evidence is not suggesting that. So I think he's been average, and we need to see a lot more from him.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, he kind of robbed us of the assist of the season. Imagine if that Colwell pass, if Felix took that down and scored from it, that would literally be the best assist we've seen in God knows how long. So, and Puzzle TV and Live TV, I understand what you're saying with NA, but if we're giving Felix an NA, there will be too many NAs in this today. So we need to put these guys into some sort of tier. Next one up, Enzo Fernandez. Charlie, I'll let you go first again. What do you reckon? Obviously missed the last game with illness, but played 90 against Palace, played 63 against Servette, played 90 against Wolves, played 32 against Servette, where he got an assist. And he played 90 against City, if we're talking competitive games. So he's playing a lot, arguably too much. I still think we're light in midfield, and I don't understand why Ugochukwu and Santos are out on loan. But sure, obviously Lavia's injury doesn't help. But where would you put him? Average, maybe? Poor?
I'm in an R in between good and average. I'd probably say average, to be in fairness.
I think good would be a bit of a push compared to like if I'm comparing him to Colwell and Cucurella.
Definitely. No, I think there's been some good performances. I thought he was very good in the second half against Wolves. Thought there was a really good performance there. But yeah, he needs to improve off the ball big time. Out of possession, he needs to improve a lot. On the ball, there's no denying the quality. There's no one that can pass the football in the team like him, with his range of passing and whatnot. But there needs to be an improvement. So I think over this small sample of games, I just think he's been average, you know, if you kind of take them all as a whole.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think that's fair overall. Maybe average plus, if you want to call it that. But for the most part, I think average is most certainly fair. And I do kind of agree. I do just want to see more. It's still not, obviously, again, we're doing this very early into the season. That's kind of the point of it. Because, like I say, I want to revisit this maybe in a month or two and see if something has dramatically changed. But I do really want to see him and Lavia being in midfield. I know against City, we obviously had Lavia, Enzo, and Caicedo, but that was also a new thing. We hadn't seen them all three together before either. I would love to see Enzo with Lavia, maybe Caicedo playing right back if that's necessary with the injuries all the time, and then Caicedo inverting, and then that allows you to have all three again. But yeah, because I still think there is a lot more to come from Enzo Fernandez. I don't think the role that Enzo Maresca is having him play at the moment is his best, if I'm honest. But I'm not sure if his best role is in the team unless allowing Caicedo to invert from right back or allowing Lavia to be with him gets that out of Enzo. But yeah, it's not an easy one for sure. Moving on to the next one though. Wesley Fofana played 90 minutes in all 4 Premier League games, and obviously he's not included in the Conference League squad, so he didn't feature against Servette. It's a tough one because in the last 2 games, like I'm looking on FotMob, he has good ratings, 7.7.
He wasn't,
but obviously gave a penalty away against Bournemouth.
Bournemouth, I thought he was poor against Bournemouth. I've got to be real. You know, he gave the ball away
because I actually thought until he gave the pen away, I thought he was good then, and I also thought as soon as he played right back and not Disasi anymore, the whole team was all of a sudden much better. So
I think he's been average. You know,
yeah, I'd put him in average as well, but I think people have been a bit harsh over the Bournemouth game.
Yeah, no, he's definitely bordering on good, but I would probably say average. And look, you know, I think when he's fit and playing at his best, he is the best defender at the club. And so we just need to slowly get him back up to getting those minutes and getting that match fitness and sharpness. But yeah, You know, he's got that recovery pace. He defends well. He's a front foot defender. He's aggressive in a tackle. I think he's got all the attributes to be a top centre back. But I think, you know, if we're being fair, it probably is. It's at the higher end of average, but over these first 4 games, I'd probably say it equates to average overall.
Yeah, no, I would probably agree. Marc Guiu then.
He's barely played.
He has barely played, but he also has the miss potentially of the season.
That was Conference League, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know it was, but not a friendly.
No. I mean, I feel bad putting.
I want to put him in A. I get what you mean.
I would probably NA him if I'm being honest, because he's hardly.
Because if we don't name, it's probably not going to look so nice on him. So
because then you put him in poor, and actually when he has played, he's not really been that bad, apart from that miss. But yeah, I'd NA him.
Yeah, he did also play 24 minutes against City, to be fair, but you know it's City and we were 2-0 down, or maybe 1-0 down.
That's the only Premier League minutes he's played, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. It is. He's been on the bench in the other ones and didn't make the squad against Palace, interestingly. So yeah, let's put him in A. Maybe that is fair. Malo Gusto then. I mean, if the injury record lowers it, I mean, we spoke about Reece James at length earlier. That's part of my issue. If we had if the backup to Reece James was an Aspie at 30, much less of an issue because Aspie was always fit. Like if Gusto was always fit, the whole Reece James thing would still be an issue, but not as big an issue as it is. And I'm not having a go at Gusto for it. But what did you make of Gusto in the games that he has played? I would probably put him in average because this is not a go at him. Well. It's more like he's played a bit of a different role. And give him a bit of time, I would say. But what would you
I would say average. I think that's fair. You know, there's been some good performances, others that have not been as good. You know, he's learning, he's inverting and whatnot into midfield, which is different for him. I would say average is fair for this small sample size so far.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I mean, Puzzle Live TV says put him in good, fairs. I think that's you're more basing that off you think he's a good player than.
I mean, he's a good player, sure, but he's
absolutely. But if you ranked him in terms of player, just ability levels, he would 100% be in good, maybe even elite, if I'm honest, because I rate him very highly for how young he is. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. Who's the next one in the list? Nicholas Jackson. Obviously an interesting one, who we will talk more about in terms of tomorrow's game a little bit later on as well. Got himself, how many goals? Let me just see.
Two goals and an assist, I think he's got.
Yeah, scored and assisted against Wolves and obviously got the goal against Palace. Yeah. Does he make good or does he make average for you? I think surely you're not saying poor.
No, he's not. No, he's not been poor. Absolutely not. No. I actually think Jackson's been. I think he's been good. I think he's been good. You know, we know he's going to miss chances and whatnot, but he works hard. He runs channels. He creates opportunities. He's a nuisance to defenders. He's got a couple of goals. And yeah, I think he's been good. Can he do better? Absolutely. But I think his performances over the course of these 4 games has been good.
Exactly. And let's not forget that Chelsea wanted to buy Victor Osimhen. Let's not forget that. There's Nicholas Jackson is not Erling Haaland. So let's not expect him to be Erling Haaland, please.
No.
Do you know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. Reece James then. Obviously NA.
Obviously NA,
my guy is never fit. Jorgensen. Now, there was a part of the second half against the Servette game where I couldn't see everything that was happening. So obviously I saw a replay of it. But that goal where he looked a bit silly, where he kind of slipped. Somewhere between these two, I would say. I don't think he makes it into good. I probably just about give him average just because he's played so little.
Yeah. But I think average is fair.
There you go. Fair enough. Definitely a good with a frown category. Yeah, there you go. I guess you could argue that. Who is the next one in my list? Well, that's Kellyman. So
nice NA.
Yeah. We'll never see your face again. Romeo Lavia.
Well, he's played 45. No, he's played
45 though.
No, he's played more than that. He's played 70? How long did he play against City? 70 odd minutes against City, I think it was. And that's it.
Let me just bring it up.
Oh, and he played maybe 10 minutes against Servette first leg and then was fucked.
Yeah, he played. He played 66 against City and then 6 against Servette.
And he was very good against.
Could have been good.
It could have been good. He was good against City, and then that Servette 6 minutes. Fuck all happens in that. So yeah, I mean, from the 66 minutes we've seen, it was good.
Yeah, no, it really was. And I hope we get to see more of it soon. Again, he's at least back in training, even if he's not yet fit to play again. Now we're getting to one guy who, in my opinion, most certainly deserves to be in elite. Noni Madueke. What a start to the season
Yeah,
he's
he's
had.
been brilliant.
I also love how the manager seems to be a huge fan of him. It makes the Neto signing look a bit more pointless because apparently Neto is considered the right winger by Maresca. And you're not playing
It's good options to have
over Madueke at the moment, are you?
No, but it's good options to have, though. You know,
of course, yeah, but 60 million for good options. Could we buy a good goalkeeper instead? Maybe. Do you know what I mean?
No. I hear you. Yeah, look, Madueke's been brilliant. You know, I think he's surprised everyone how well he's done at the start of this season. Obviously, the hat-trick against Wolves, impact he's making direct. He seems like the perfect player for this Maresca's style of football. And hopefully that continues. But I think his performance levels across the 4 games do warrant going in that category.
100%. Obviously, he got the hat-trick against Wolves, scored in the first leg against Servette, which in the end you can say was part of the reason why we still scraped through. Obviously, not for Chelsea, but for England, got an assist on his debut. Should have maybe got a goal against Palace and didn't from a couple of the assists, like the balls, for example, from Enzo he got against Bournemouth. It wasn't his best game, but it was a difficult game. So, yeah, for me, very, very clearly in elites. Mykhailo Mudryk then. Played, for me, a surprising amount at the beginning of the season, and now doesn't look like. Now I'm not sure when he will next get a game. I guess maybe
night, probably. Yeah, Barrow. Probably. Yeah,
you kind of have to put him in. I don't think he's been like close to awful.
No, I think poor is fair. You know, I mean, what's he played? He played against Servette. I thought he was actually okay in that Servette game, the first leg. Wolves' first half wasn't great. Came on against Palace, wasn't an awful lot there. He wasn't the only one. And then we haven't seen him since, have we?
Yeah, no, he played both legs against Servette. And then, like you say, the first half against Wolves, and then 16 minutes against Palace. That's his minutes so far this season. Because against City, he was an unused sub, and against Bournemouth, he was an unused sub. Which I fear for him will happen a few more times this season, being an unused sub.
I think so. But I also think there are going to be opportunities there as well. You know,
for sure.
You know, even if it's not Premier League, there's going to be opportunities. Conference League, I think he'll start every game. Well, certainly those group phase ones, I think he'll start them. And there's going to be opportunities for him. And all he can do is make the most of them to try and get himself into the team. But for me, this is if he doesn't really improve this season, then it's finished for him here, I feel.
I do too. As much as I like him, I feel the same.
I really like him as well, but it gets to the point where you can't just keep saying the potential and the abilities there, because it needs to happen at some point.
Exactly, especially when compared to most of the squad, he's actually one of the older, not younger ones, which is kind of weird to think about.
Mad at 23 to say he's one of the older ones, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely mental. But like our average squad, or at least our average teams this season, have been like 23 anyway. So like he's literally bang in the middle at least, and that's because we had Sterling. No, Sterling didn't actually get used at all anymore, did he? So we only Disasi and Tosin and Sanchez that kind of pushed the average up. And Nkunku, of course. Pedro Neto, though.
Average
I just put him on average for now. Obviously, the assist against Wolves was nice. For Sancho, that was good. I was kind of disappointed against Palace and against Bournemouth, if I'm being honest with you, bro.
I absolutely agree. Palace was a disappointment, and Bournemouth was not all his fault because the ball didn't get out to him a lot, but when he did have it, he didn't really do very much with it. I thought Palace and Bournemouth were particularly disappointing. It's early days, though. The cameo against Wolves was decent. So I think average, but there's definitely a lot more to come from him.
Yeah. Also, like against Servette, when he actually did play on the right, where I do think he's better. In that game, he also didn't do anything. So
he had a few opportunities. End product wasn't great. I agree on that.
Yeah. I think average is fair. Obviously, let's give the kid a bit of time. Still a lot of time and games to come for him. Yeah. Because not everyone is Diego Costa and or Cole Palmer is amazing from day one. That doesn't happen that often. So give it a bit of time. Ask Cucurella. I mean, for a year and a half, everybody was like, he's the worst player the world has ever seen. And now he's one of the first, if not the first name on the team sheet sometimes. Yeah. So look at how things can change. So obviously that can still happen for Pedro Neto as well. Now, an interesting one again. Christopher Nkunku, bro, obviously scored the huge winner in the last game, which was a huge game. But even in his celebration, the way he celebrated, he only played 11 minutes. Last year, they sold us, once he's back from injury, he will be our savior. Now he's not even getting in the team.
Bro,
So
I think average, he started against City. He played, obviously, the Servette games. But in the league, he's only started 1 out of 4 games.
exactly. And
It
those games that
seems
he did
now,
start, was he great against City?
wasn't great. No.
Against Servette, oh, sure, he scored pens, but I'm not
outside
gonna
of
give him
that,
too much
not
credit
a
for
huge
penalties.
impact. Not a huge
Yeah.
impact outside of that. I think average is fair right now. And he's in an interesting predicament here because essentially right now, he's the only way he's going to be in this team is as a striker. If we take what Maresca says to be true, then the only way Nkunku gets in this team is as a striker.
Yeah. And I mean, we were talking about it on our podcast. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, check out my podcast, Chelsea Unfiltered. Usually, well, me and Pice are hosting the podcast, but Pice was ill last week, so I recorded it with Ollie instead. The new episode is live. Link is down in the description. If you do want to check that out, obviously we speak about Bournemouth. We look slightly ahead to the West Ham game as well. But what I did mention in that one already is, or what we spoke about, could you at all see Nkunku ending up being like a super sub for kind of a lot of this season?
Yeah, quite possibly. I actually think it's weird, but I actually think he would suit coming off the bench better than Jackson does. I know that sounds a bit strange, but I think in Nkunku, when you're against a tiring defense, you maybe create some opportunities late on. I feel like he's going to have more of an impact at the end of a game rather than at the start. For me, right, as a defender, who would you rather play against, Jackson or Nkunku? And I'm not saying that Nkunku is a bad player and defenders will have an easy time against him. But for me, Jackson's more of a handful. Runs in behind, pace, stretching the defenders, running the channels. I think Nkunku is a bit more one-dimensional and probably easier to defend against. And look, I'm not saying he can't start as number 9 in certain games, but it's for me, I think Jackson offers more. I know Nkunku's probably our best finisher, and if you want a chance to fall to someone, you want it to fall to him. But Jackson offers right now, I think Jackson offers more overall and brings more to the team.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, there is that thought in me
where
I'm like,
saying that. It does feel weird saying it because I think Nkunku should be in this team, but right now you can't, other than playing centre forward, you can't justify him anywhere else, and it's even hard to a degree to justify him playing down the middle at the moment.
Exactly, and that's my issue. The only thing I'll give him a little bit, especially when we compare him to Jackson up front, is Nkunku hasn't played a lot of games.
No.
Well, in his career, but especially for us, up front on his own. So if we're going to turn him into a front lone striker, then we need to also give him a little bit of time to get used to that, because that's not a position he's used to.
But then my point on that is, right, and if Maresca is what he's saying is true, it's him and Jackson as the 9s, and then it's Madueke and Neto right-wing options, Mudryk and Sancho on the left. What happens if we then, and then it's Palmer and Felix as 10s or whatever. What happens if in January or next summer we sign a striker, right? What happens to Nkunku? We're going to have Nkunku, Jackson, and said striker as 3 centre-forward options.
Yep, that's exactly the issue.
And you've got
what would have happened if we signed Osimhen? Then
and you've got Esteval and Pires. This is what I was saying on my channel earlier. Is that obviously probably Mudryk's going to leave, you would imagine, unless the form picks up. He'll obviously be one of the players that's likely to go to make way for Esteval and Pires. For Esteval and Pires to come in, someone else needs to go as well. And it might seem crazy to say it, I think Nkunku could be a prime candidate for it. If things continue how they are, and if we sign another striker, where does he play?
Yeah, and he should just be one of the number 10s instead of Joao Felix being that number 10.
He should be, but
he won't be.
Yeah, he's not.
So,
and this is the point. This is why we've kind of fucked ourselves a little bit here by signing so many players. Is that someone like Nkunku? It might be a bold take, and I might be slightly overreactionary. I'd be surprised if he was here in 2 seasons' time.
I agree. I mean, unless he starts scoring like an absolute madman.
Yeah,
then obviously that can change. But as of right now, I agree. Moving on to the last few, Cole Palmer then. Obviously, an elite game against Wolves, 3 assists and a goal. Got another assist against Palace as well.
Yeah.
But that's it in terms of goal contributions for him, which for Cole Palmer is not that great. Played, obviously, only 16 minutes against Servette, 32 minutes in the other game against Servette. The game against City is obviously a difficult one for him. And against Bournemouth, even though he struggled. Goal contribution. They marked him out of it, but I still don't think it was bad. I still think it was better than a lot better than, say, Neto, for example. In that game.
He struggled to have an impact on the game in that Bournemouth game. And that's something he's going to have to get used to because teams are going to man mark him for 90 minutes. That's what they're going to do.
I also felt that as much as Noni has been elite and as much as them two link up really, really well, you could see that in this game, once Noni was taken off, Palmer found, because then when Palmer is essentially marked out of a game, he kind of needs the wing area to kind of drop away from being marked. And then because Noni always keeps that width in that area, that kind of stopped Palmer from going there. And I felt once Noni came off, I'm not saying Palmer was amazing after that, but I felt he managed to be a bit more involved in the game because he could find himself space to receive the ball, which he was kind of struggling a bit with to begin with, if that makes sense. So I'd probably put him in good, maybe purely because of how good the Wolves game was. You could still consider elite, but I'd probably put him in good. Where would you put him, bro?
I think I'd go with good as well. For me, I think good. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Fair enough. Let's not get stuck on it for too long. Rob Sanchez, then, obviously an elite game against Bournemouth, no question about that.
Been good. I actually think he's been good this season. I know it sounds crazy, but very good against Bournemouth, as you referenced.
Yeah.
I actually don't think he's been that bad this season. It's a small sample, so I still need to do a lot more to win myself over and many more. But if we're being fair, outstanding against Bournemouth and the other games, I actually don't think he's been that bad.
Well, I think he looked a bit silly for the Haaland goal against City.
Yeah, sure.
I think if Kepa conceded the Kovacic goal, everyone would have blamed Kepa.
Oh, no, of course, there was that Kovacic. Yeah, he should have kept that out. But the City game, okay, maybe the 2 goals could have done a bit better. But I think overall, he's actually been quite good.
Yeah, against Wolves, I remember. I mean, one of the goals happened from kind of playing out from the back, right? And maybe one of his passes didn't help the situation. Good with verging on average for me, but I'll agree with good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. Tosin then. Not so many games, but helped us turn the game around when he came on against Bournemouth, to be fair to him. But obviously he played 90 against Servette twice, and that's it otherwise. So
yeah, I'd say average. I think average is fair.
Probably fair. Moving on quickly, Renato Veiga. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of him in midfield against Bournemouth, although I also have to say he got better the longer the game went on.
Yeah, he did grow into it for sure. First half, he was shaky, looked a bit nervous, not great on the ball.
Yeah,
he definitely grew it.
I'm not sure if you picked up on it as much as I did watching it in the ground, but early in the first half, maybe 5th minute of the game or whatever, he tried to do a centre-back clearance in the middle of the pitch, missed the ball. And I'm like, bro, you can't, first of all, don't do a centre-back clearance in the middle of the pitch anyway. But if you do, most certainly don't miss the ball trying to clear it, man. Do you know what I mean? So don't be doing that. But when he played kind of the left back inverting role, whatever he did, I actually thought he was good. So yeah, because he's new, very cheap, I would make an argument for good, but if you say average, I'm okay with that as well.
I'd probably say average because I just don't think that. He's not necessarily done anything wrong, but if we're saying has his performance, has his contributions been the same as the guys in good, I'd say no.
Yeah, no, that is fair. Where is he in this squad list? What? Why is he not in defenders? There he is. At the very bottom or top of midfielders before attackers. So didn't see that coming. But yeah, obviously played 90 against Bournemouth, played 90 against Servette twice, and played 10 minutes at the end against Man City. So yeah, fair enough. Average. But I think more of a positive average than maybe a couple of others. And then finishing it off, obviously very, very limited sample size and arguably should go in NA. Considering we put Guiu in NA and he played more than Sancho did. But I think because it was in a Prem and of how good it was, I think that 45 minutes, and I know it's only 45 minutes, but I do think that 45 minutes goes in elite.
I think that's fair, yeah. I would agree.
Fantastic. So we got through the squad. Didn't take us 3.5 hours, so that's positive. Like I say, we'll revisit this maybe during international break, maybe during November international break might be a better time. We'll see how it fits into everything that's happening. But yeah, very interesting. Obviously, hopefully more players manage to play themselves into the elite tier. A few of the average tier also up into the good tier. That would be nice. And let's hope we don't have many more drop-offs, even though I'm expecting a couple. Sanchez. I'm messing around. Let's try to focus back on the actual game tomorrow. Now, we kind of spoke about it already, but you kind of mentioned it already. What I found very interesting from Maresca's press conference today was him clarifying which position everyone is kind of a part of.
Yep.
Like I say, you touched on it a few minutes ago. But he said left wing is Jadon Sancho and Mudryk. Right wing, we have Madueke and Pedro Neto. As the number 10s, we have Cole Palmer and Joao Felix. And then as 9s, we have Nico and Christopher Nkunku. Nicholas Jackson, obviously, Nico being. You touched on it earlier that it was kind of surprising. A lot of this surprised me. First of all, that he mentioned Neto so quite clearly as a right winger, even though he then clarified for the last game, Sancho wasn't ready. And for this specific game, he just preferred Neto on the left over Mudryk. And I guess fair enough. But first of all, I'm surprised that Joao Felix doesn't count more as a striker, if I'm being honest, because he arguably has more experience playing up front than Nkunku does on his own. And also that he didn't mention Nkunku as a 10 option. That did surprise me as well. Well, I mean, you like I say, you kind of hinted at it already, but that did surprise me the way I don't know what he was trying to do, whether he was trying to tell the media that we don't have such a big squad and we only have 2 players per position. I don't know what he was doing. Because, well, then he forgot about Guiu, mentioned him in hindsight. And again, like you said, what if we sign a striker? What happens then? Do you know what I mean? So I did find that interesting, especially the left wing, right wing situation as well.
I think it makes sense. I think there's clarity there that maybe that's been well overdue. You could argue.
Do you believe the clarity the way Maresca said it, or do you think that was kind of he just said it to the media this way? Because I would be surprised if in his head it's quite.
I don't think it's
clear.
fully. I don't think it's. Look, I think that's the idea. But that doesn't mean that it's not flexible. It doesn't mean that you might not see Neto on the left. It doesn't mean that you might not see Sancho play on the right. It doesn't mean that you won't see Nkunku as a 10. It doesn't mean you won't see Palmer on the right on certain occasions. I think this is the plan, but I don't think it's like rigid and there's no deviation from it at all. But I think it does make sense to be perfectly honest.
Yeah,
and I would rather.
It's just a bit unfortunate. Well, unfortunate is maybe the wrong word. Like you said, it's a good option and a good problem to have. But that we spent 60 million on a winger who now happens to play on the side where our most informed winger already plays. Yeah. It's a bit unlucky for it's just unlucky for Neto for more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, look, as long season, people's form is going to dip, injuries, loads of games and whatnot. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for Neto. So, I mean, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for all these guys. And now maybe you see why we've got so many attacking players. If with the amount of games that we might have, and the options are good to have. Against Bournemouth, we were able to bring on Felix, Sancho, and Nkunku to try and change the game. That's not a bad thing. But then at the same time, with Esteban and Paez coming, as I said before, 2 from that list, in my opinion, are going to have to go next summer.
Yeah, probably. I mean, let's see what he does with the formation and stuff, because if you don't have Enzo as one of the 10s, you have all of a sudden so many more options. If you had a real, people don't want to hear it. But if you say, imagine one of these 10s was Mason Mount instead of Enzo Fernandez, then you could have a player that has the legs to track back, help in midfield, but still have more of this kind of goal threat kind of output. And I know Mount, I'm talking Chelsea Mount, right? Obviously not Man United Mount. Or someone similar, doesn't have to be Mount himself. The problem is in Nkunku and also Joao Felix, they're almost a bit too attacking to play this kind of second 10 role next to Cole Palmer. So I just don't think we signed the right profile of players for what our manager needed in that position. And it's just weird. The closest to it, to be fair, is Dewsbury Hall. He's the most suited to that position, but he's just not good enough. So, make of that what you will. I'm throwing a bit of a twist in here for Charlie and for the people watching, because the last topic is then obviously going to be the team. So I do have one thing that I want to talk about, which came out like a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, from Ben Jacobs. So fairly reliable source, right? Something that already was said about that his agent said that a few weeks ago, but let me just read it out. Sources said Esteban Willian, obviously the guy we signed for 60-odd million when he was 16, that will join us next summer, has made it clear to Chelsea that he sees himself as a creative number 10 playing behind a striker, despite playing the majority of his Palmeiras career on the right. Chelsea are working to grant his wish, although he could be used out wide to accommodate Cole Palmer. I know this is a bit random in terms of topical, but do you also find this a bit odd? I just, like, I know you've spoken to Ben Jacobs quite a few times, but it just, even if you think you're the guy at 17 years old, I just can't imagine that like 10 months or something before joining us, he's already like telling Chelsea, by the way, I want to play number 10.
Yeah,
I just can't believe that.
I'm not sure I fully believe that. I don't deny that he said that maybe his camp or himself have said, look,
maybe he wants the number 10 shirt and something got lost in translation.
I don't deny that himself and his camp maybe say, you know, that he sees himself as a 10. I don't think this is him saying I'm only playing 10. I think, you know, there's scope there. You know, as you said, he's been playing number 10 for Palmeiras a bit more recently because I think there's been a few injuries, but, you know, he's predominantly plays off the right. But yeah, I don't think I'll read too much into this. I don't think he's in a position to be making demands like that. What I suspect is probably, you know, he said that he maybe prefers playing as a 10, and that's kind of the extent of it from my opinion. That's sort of what I'm taking away from that, is that maybe he prefers playing as a number 10. But
why would he have that preference if he played as a right winger all the time?
I don't know, to be honest. But until he arrives, we're not really going to know.
No, we won't. But yeah, I just thought let's quickly talk about it because I just find it. I don't know. I'm just not concerned. Is the wrong word.
I'm
I just
not
really
sure.
hope he isn't one of these. Gone.
I'd be surprised if those sorts of demands are being made. Personally,
yeah, no, exactly. Because the last thing we need is this Esteval kid who is so talented. We're all banking on. So many of us are kind of like hoping, you know, almost like Nkunku last season when he was injured, like being our savior or whatever you want to call it. I really hope he's not going to be like super arrogant, because if this is true, that comes across a bit arrogant. I can't lie. So I hope it's not, not to this extent anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of alongside getting into the game and into the team, I quickly want to highlight also another quote from Maresca from the press conference, where he was essentially speaking about Nkunku versus Jackson. He said, we used Nkunku the last game, only for the last 11 minutes, mate, but sure. He's completely different to Nicholas. Nico is a number 9. Nkunku isn't the real number 9. I'm so happy with the squad we have, not just the two of them. Nkunku doesn't like to play wide. He likes to play central, but sometimes to find the balance, he plays in a position that isn't the best for him. What do you make of that comment? And I would like you to allude it into what would you do and what do you think happens tomorrow? Because there's a lot of people were talking about, it needs to be Nkunku up front next game, this and that. And I just like, first of all, I think you're all being a tad harsh on Jackson. It was a difficult game for a striker, and I don't think he did that badly. And also, the games where I've seen Nkunku play a lot, let alone start up front on his own, that didn't go
not been great.
At all.
No.
So
no. It's true. Nkunku's not a real number 9. We all know that. He is definitely different. As I referenced earlier, you know, he probably is the best finisher at the football club. If we're being real, probably him and Cole Palmer. If you want a chance to fall to anyone, it's going to be one of those two guys. But I almost think a player like Nkunku is, you know, he's got so much quality. The problem we've got is there's not really unless he plays striker, as we said, there's no obvious starting role for him, and he's not really a striker. He's someone that can play that role and is a good finisher, but he's not someone that I think can lead the line effectively on a weekly basis. I
think he could start as the 10 when Palmer doesn't play. I think.
Sure. But if you're talking Chelsea's strongest team,
yeah.
If you're talking Chelsea's best 11, I'll be honest, mate. Nkunku's not in it. It's best starting 11. I'll be real. He's not.
And does that go for tomorrow, or do you think getting that winner gets him a start at least to see how it goes?
I don't think he does get him a start. I don't.
Not for you, or just not for Maresca, or both?
For Maresca, and maybe slightly for me. I'd like to see it, but I don't see it happening in this one. You know, I've got to be real, mate. I don't see it happening in this game tomorrow. And I think it's a strange situation, but I think Nkunku, basically, whether Maresca admits it or not, is basically finding himself as a second choice number 9 right now and an impact sub.
Yep. I kind of agree with you. So let me open up the lineup sheet, shall we? Obviously, I'm putting it up in a 4-2-3-1 again as a base. We all know it shifts around, whether it then shifts into a 3-3-4 or whether it shifts into a 3-2-5 4-1, whatever you want to call it. Let's start it off as this base fullback. Goalkeeper, we know Jorgensen plays the Conference League and presumably the Cups. That will actually be interesting against Barrow. Does that automatically become Jorgensen, or is him having the Conference League games enough that actually Sanchez will play in the Cup? That would be interesting.
It'll be Jorgensen for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think so as well. But if Jorgensen is the true conference goalkeeper, even if we make it to the final and he still gets to play, then that's a lot of games as well. Like, that's what? How many group games is it? 8 also in the Conference League, right? Yeah. So then that would be a total of up to 15 games by the time he gets to the final, which is obviously not as much as the Prem. But yeah, but for tomorrow it is Sanchez, right? For you and for Maresca. Today, I know last week we did predicted 11 because I think the predicted 11 is a bit too simple this time. Let's do our team. Maybe there'll be something interesting in there. But yeah, Sanchez for you, right?
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Now, Charlie, why don't you talk me through, you know what, because they all have connections to each other as to why one will play where. Why don't you just tell me your whole back four?
So, obviously, Cucurella is in there at left back for me. And then, look, obviously, having no right back available is an issue. People talk about Josh Akimpong. I don't think he's going to be included. He wasn't on the bench against Bournemouth at all when there was no right back. I suspect he's more likely to play against Barrow in the week. So for me, I go left back Cucurella, and then I think the best scenario here is how we finish the Bournemouth game. Colwell plays left centre back. Tosin goes alongside him, and Fofana shifts out to right back, and then Cucurella inverts into midfield, and it becomes a back three out of possession, and Fofana slots it in right centre back. That for me is our best option tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I would still like to do Caicedo right back and invert him now that Enzo Fernandez is available. That is a bit more possible than it was last week.
Sure,
but maybe it's something to wait for until Lavia is back as well.
I agree.
I do hear that, but
that's what I would go with, and I think that's probably what Maresca will go with as well.
I do agree. I do agree. My only kind of issue with it is that I really want Colwell to be the central centre back, because the central centre back does most of the build-up work. Like, for example, in the last game, Fofana had, I think, double the amount of passes of Colwell, because obviously Fofana until the 61st minute played central centre back, and I just think we don't use Colwell's abilities to the best of its potential when we don't play him in the middle. But with the injury situation as it is, I probably agree. Like I say, I do want to see this whole Caicedo at right back thing trialed, because I do think it can work, and then he inverts instead, and you just let Cucurella be the left centre back. I think that could be a surprisingly good role and a surprisingly good solution to somehow make Lavia, Enzo, and Caicedo all fit. But yeah, for this one, because it worked fairly well in towards the end against Bournemouth, I think that is probably what we should go with. And I agree with you also what I think Maresca will go with. Midfield then, mate. Because Enzo is back, just Caicedo and Enzo now?
Yeah, I think so. That's probably what I would go with. Some people maybe say Veiga, but I don't think he did enough to sort of keep his place in the midfield. I know it's pretty boring, but I think that's what I would go with, and I think that's obviously what we're going to see as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if Veiga is needed in midfield, I guess you could theoretically play Cucurella on the right. You could let him invert from the right and play Veiga as the left centre back.
You could maybe do that, but I think we would have seen that against. Maybe we wouldn't have seen that against Bournemouth with the midfield.
Yeah, because we didn't have the midfield options. That game, so
look, it's an option, but I'd still be surprised if we saw that. It's definitely an option, but I'd be surprised if we didn't see what was on screen at the back.
Yeah. Oh, no, Vic. I wouldn't have played Enzo midfield alone. I would have then played Veiga in midfield again. Played Enzo and Veiga as the starters. Then Enzo pushes up, and then Caicedo shifts next to Veiga into midfield. That would have been my idea, if that makes sense. But yeah, the forward lines then. There's kind of, I mean, obviously we spoke about Nkunku Jackson already. I would probably also go Jackson again.
I agree.
If we played, I don't know what the best example is, but there's a couple of opponents where I would be like, okay, try this with Nkunku. But West Ham away is not that game for me. So Yeah,
they got big physical centre backs as well. Kilman, Todibo. You need someone that's going to get in behind.
Is Zuma fit?
Zuma's left, mate.
What?
Zuma's gone to Saudi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was just a rumor and then didn't happen.
No. He's gone, mate. He's gone.
I'm caught up, aren't I?
Yeah.
There you go. Fantastic. Well, no, exactly. But still, the point stands for Nicholas Jackson. That's crazy. Zuma was captain last year. Now he's just gone.
Yeah, mate. He's playing for some dog shit Saudi team. I think Al Aruba or something. Al Aruba or something.
Just had it up, but I didn't read it properly.
Yeah. But yeah,
do you reckon he's allowed to kick cats there, or
no, probably not?
I mean, maybe.
But yeah, in terms of big centre backs, it probably is going to be Todibo and Kilman. I think you want someone that's going to run in behind, stretch the back line, cause issues. And I do want to see Nkunku as a 9 at some point. But as you say, mate, this for me is not the game to try it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do agree. I guess the rest mostly picks itself. I assume you're not dropping Palmer, because I'm not.
No.
I mean, yeah, you could argue playing Nkunku there instead, but it's not going to happen, is it? You need Palmer in the team. If he doesn't start Sancho there tomorrow, then I'm like, we don't have a meritocracy at all at this football club. So surely Sancho has to start left wing, right?
You would think so. I think the only reason he wouldn't start is maybe he's still managing his minutes and his fitness potentially. But
but then take him off after 60 if you have to.
Yeah, sure. I agree, but I would go with Sancho, and I'd be surprised if he didn't start.
Yeah, no, I would as well. Now on the right-hand side, because now Pedro Neto isn't on the left, and Pedro Neto was mentioned by Maresca as the right winger, and because he cost 60 million, do you think there's a chance Madueke sits this one out? Because obviously the first 2 games he didn't get to play, City and the first Servette game, and then he's played every game since. Does he keep his place?
No. Yes, he does keep his place for me. He does, yeah. Look, I don't think... Look, the Bournemouth game wasn't amazing, but he wasn't awful. And I don't think Neto's been subsequently good enough to warrant replacing him, in my opinion, on what we've seen so far. So, yeah, Madueke for me will start on the right-hand side. I think Neto will be on the bench for tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I do think so as well. I mean, I do see a small chance that he says, okay, let me put Madueke on the bench, rest him, because he's played quite a lot now. Obviously, his first international break recently.
He won't play against Barrow, though, will he? So,
no, exactly. But if whoever doesn't start tomorrow will start right wing against Barrow. Yeah. But yeah, by the way, just to make it clear, if we are in a good position, which again, we have a terrible, terrible record at London Stadium. I'll hit you with a crazy stat. Charlie, I am very sure knows this, but maybe some people in the chat don't. And again, guys, by the way, hit the subscribe button and the like button. Like I say, check out our podcast, which is down in the description. Chelsea have only won in front of fans at London Stadium once. Now, I don't remember the exact season. Yes, exactly. When we won the league under Conte. So I don't remember how many seasons before that West Ham actually moved to London Stadium. It can't have been that long before it. But still. And I know obviously there was two years without fans with COVID and everything. And we won there once there. Well, you remember when Hazard scored as well and Kante played that kind of through ball to himself down by the corner flag. So we did win that twice, but only once with fans. And the last few years, my God, remember when Potter said, it is what it is after that blatant handball save from the Gallagher shot.
The Souček, yeah.
When we got counted like crazy under Tuchel, lost 3-2 was it? Last year, I can't even remember what the score was, if I'm honest.
3-1. We missed penalty from Enzo.
Oh yeah, Caicedo's debut, wasn't it?
Yeah, missed penalty from Enzo. Chukwuemeka scored a decent goal, then was fucked, and then we fell apart second half.
Yeah, it wasn't great. So with that said, then Charlie, if we turn up with this team, with this record, do you truly see us winning? Obviously, we should win.
I think we can win. I personally feel it's going to be a draw. I mean, West Ham are still finding their feet under Lopetegui. A lot of new players have come in. They've not had the best start to the season, but they've got players that can cause problems. Paqueta, Kudus, Bowen. Whether full crew plays or not is going to be a handful for our centre backs if he does play. Midfield is good as well with obviously Alvarez in there, Paqueta, and maybe Souček or someone else, I can't remember now, might be in there. You know, look, in theory, they're a decent team, but I think we've got a chance. And to be honest, this might be our best chance in quite a while, given how that team is not really settled under Lopetegui yet, and they haven't really found any form. Won one game, they scraped a last-minute equaliser against Fulham last week. This could be our best chance in a number of years to get a win here.
Yeah, but we could also super easily be on the same points right now because we're 3 points ahead of them. But that Bournemouth game, as you and me both know, could have gone very differently.
Yeah,
so we could also be sat here both on 4 points.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's I would love to say we're going to win. I also think this game has got Niklas Füllkrug's first West Ham goal from a corner written all over it. Whether he comes on as a sub or starts, but it's got that written all over it. I want to say 3-1, but I'm going to say 2-1 Chelsea. I'm going to say 2-1 Chelsea. What's your prediction, bro?
I'll be honest, mate. I think it's going to be 1-1.
Yeah, I fear that.
I mean, I'd love us to win. Of course I do, but I just think I just personally feel it's going to be a draw.
Yeah, early kickoff as well. That doesn't help, does it?
No, it doesn't help.
Did you say West Hamster on purpose, or was that autocorrect? West Hamster is quite funny. They are notorious at letting shots in on goal. The problem is we are notorious at not scoring our shots on goal. So, it's one of those. It's one of those. But yeah, I'm confident. I'm hopeful. But I have to be so realistic. Our record there isn't great. Our early kickoff record in general isn't great. So, yeah. But what I will say is, in general, so far this season, other than Servette, our away form has certainly been better than the home form. We've looked better. The fans have obviously very much been very supportive of the team. Obviously, bigger stadium, a bit further away from the sidelines compared to in Wolves or at Bournemouth. So maybe the away fans will be able to have a bit less of an impact. Will be interesting to see. But yeah, I just hope we win. Because if we win tomorrow and we start the first 5 games with 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, when we already played City as well, it's not bad. Now, sure, we should have beaten Palace and it would have looked much nicer, say it would be 4 wins, 0 draws, 1 loss. But hey, against City, you lose. It happens. It's our first game on the new manager. Even if they don't have Rodri, look at them. Look at fucking Haaland. Do you know what I mean? Like that cheat code. Haaland has scored more goals on his own than every single Premier League team. Do you know that, by the way?
Yeah, it's mad. It's absolutely
Haaland
mad.
on his own has 9 goals, and Chelsea are actually the next highest scoring team in the league with 8 goals. So City in total have 11. 9 of those by Haaland. We're the next highest scoring team thanks to our 6 goals at Wolves. And he's still scored more than we have. Mental.
It's crazy.
Like these lot, this is not fair. Like it's just not fair. Charlie, I have a random question for you. Imagine Man City, right? They get absolutely destroyed by whatever the charges are, right? And we assume and we just pretend everyone, as a punishment, gets to take 1 player from City in order of league finish. Now, you could argue like a US draft, right? The bottom team should pick first. But then I'm like, imagine Haaland and De Bruyne have to go to flipping, I don't know. It's not Luton anymore this season now, I know. But imagine they have to go to the promoted sides. That would be funny. So let's go from top up. And obviously you have to take City out. So we'd be 5th choice. So let's assume Haaland is gone. De Bruyne is gone. Rodri is gone. And I guess Foden is probably the 4th most likely choice. So who would be the next one you'd pick? Stones, Diaz?
Probably take Ederson.
Yeah,
I mean, we need a goal. We need a decent goal. I'd take Ederson.
Yeah, exactly. Pice in our chat said Guardiola. I'm like, I like Guardiola, but we literally have Cobble there. Why do I need Guardiola as well?
I'd say Ederson.
Yeah, for me, it's between Ederson and Stones for sure. But yeah, it's got to be Ederson. Really, it's just a tad old, but otherwise, would be easy. I mean, before we round this one out, do you think anything happens to City? Because I feel like the media discourse has been a bit more dramatic over the last week than I thought it would be. So it seems like at least the media is expecting something to happen. And when the media expects something to happen and then it doesn't, then the media outrage is quite big. And you know that the Premier League doesn't care about fairness. The Premier League care about reputation. So
I think at most, mate, it'll be a fine. I think they'll be fined and they may be banned from a couple of transfer windows or something like that, potentially. I don't see anything major happening, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, there was these reports that say the other clubs feel like even a points deduction relegating them isn't a severe enough punishment.
They're not going to relegate them. For me,
but that wouldn't even help either. It would be much more useful if you deducted them 10 points for the next 5 years or something, because then they wouldn't be able to win the league. That would be much more useful than relegating them once. Even if you took 50 points from them, they don't go down. Like, how many points do you have to take away? They wouldn't just go down. But one thing I saw is that there's a potential that they could get excluded from all competitions. So Europe, Premier League, English Cups, that'd be crazy. I don't think it happens, but imagine.
I don't think anything like that's going to happen. I just think at a fine, I think basically, I think they'll just get fined and that'll be it. Maybe a transfer window ban. I don't really know, but I don't see anything major happening.
Yeah, and like Puzzle TV, Live TV says, the Premiership is corrupt. They get a slap on the wrist, 37p fine. The only reason why I slightly disagree with you and with Charlie here a little bit is because, like I said, the Premier League cares first and foremost about money and reputation. And I think the reputation will take such a bad hit from everywhere. Like, even you see the boss of the Spanish league, like Trejas or whatever his name is, he was speaking about it, like, no one will take the Premier League seriously anymore if nothing happens to City. Now, you can argue the Prem doesn't care because we're the biggest league, we have the most money. Why do they care what anybody thinks? But I think the reputation, maybe that's the only thing that happens. But before we round it out, Wing has turned up, coming clutch with the super chat. Appreciate it. He says, what do y'all think of our home fans? Be honest. I mean, Charlie, maybe this is a better question for you, although maybe also not so much because you don't want to get punched when you go back to Stamford Bridge. But you're obviously there every week, pretty much. What do you're sat mostly in the Matthew Harding Lower, right? So that is
pretty much sit there. Yeah,
what do you make of it? Like, is it too many tourists? Is it too much? Too like spoiled fans expecting too much?
I think it's a bit of everything. I think it's a bit of everything, to be honest, mate. I don't think it helps where you've really only got two stands that sing anything. You know, Matthew Harding and the Shed.
And one of them is shared with the away ends.
Yeah, you know, the whole hospitality thing, just no singing at all in Westview, zero atmosphere. People just sit down, don't say nothing's been. That doesn't help either. You've got a whole stand taken out. East stands a family section.
I will always tell this story, right? I was once in my life, I sat in, at the time still called West Upper, now obviously Westview. I was sat there once for a Champions League game against PSG when David Luiz knocked us out. Remember that game?
Yeah.
I'm sure we all do. It was last minute that I could turn up. I scrambled for a ticket. That was the only ticket I could get. Overpaid dramatically for it. So, bad night. I was sat in the very last row of West Upper. The last row. So there was only a wall behind me, nothing else. And I was stood there. I made friends with the guy next to me. We were stood up trying to get songs going and whatever. I literally had stewards come up to me telling me to sit down. I'm like, sorry, I'm in the last row. Why do I need to sit down? I'm not impeding anybody's view. It's the last row, man. Let me stand if I want to. Who cares? Oh, my God. Yeah, no, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah,
it's true, mate. I think there's too much.
Allowed to stand in the last row, man. No one.
The biggest thing is you've got too many spoilt fans, really. Too many impatient fans. Obviously, there's a lot of tourists as well. Premier League football is a tourist attraction now. That's just the way it is.
Especially in London, obviously.
And obviously when you've got a whole two stands that make no noise at all, it's not going to lend itself to a very good atmosphere.
No, it doesn't. But that's the frustrating thing. If they would at least genuinely make no noise at all, that would be something. But they just don't make any positive noise. But they do most definitely get, groan or boo or like unhappy. Like, that's the annoying thing. Like, it's one thing to not be vocally supporting, okay, but to groan every time we pass the ball backwards, it's not going to fucking help the team, though, is it?
No, it's not. I absolutely agree, mate, on that. I absolutely agree.
So, I mean, obviously, I've been to many games in England. Charlie's obviously from England, so a bit better position. I do always think, obviously, I'm from Austria. I went to a lot of football games here. I went to a lot of football games in Germany. And there's obviously the ultra culture with, you have an ultra stand, you have a guy with a megaphone who tells everybody what to sing, and then everybody just sings that. And I know in England, that's just hated and really like almost looked down upon. And I'm just like, don't you want better? If you have one guy telling them what to sing, everybody will sing the same thing. And you have a guy that thinks of, okay, now we're singing this. Okay, this song's over. Let's sing the next song. Rather than you having to hope a group of 5 turn up with a song that spreads across the whole stand and then in an ideal world across the whole stadium. Because by the time the rest of the stadium even hears it, the first 5 have already stopped singing it. So, yeah, we need to figure something out. I mean, Charlie, did you last year go Arsenal away, right?
Yep.
What? Because, again, I'm not in England and I haven't been for a couple of years now. This whole Arsenal new ultras thing,
It's not that great.
Did it help their atmosphere? Did it not?
Not particularly as far as I was concerned.
They smashed us 5-0. So
yeah, I mean they smashed us 5-0. So the place is obviously bouncing anyway. So it's hard to tell. I didn't really know if it contributes very much or not. But on that particular night, I didn't really notice anything extra special because you've beaten Chelsea 5-0 and they're loving it.
Exactly. I mean, Wing followed it up, says, even when we were winning, away fans used to come to Stamford Bridge and dominate the noise level.
Not used to, they do. Every week they're louder than us. Barrow will be louder than us on Tuesday night, guaranteed.
Yeah. I mean, Barrow, if Barrow filled the shed, they'll be miles louder than us. But the one thing I will say to this is that applies to every Premier League home stadium. I would argue that the away fans are always better than the home fans. Maybe with the exception of Newcastle, but I think the reason for that is also that the away fans are up in the gods, and that's why the pitch side microphones can't hear the away fans. I think also the away fans are huge because the away fans, they're a collective group of like 1,500 to 3,000 people, depending on stadium and club, that all turn up to support and sing. Not 40,000 where some of them want to have a nice Sunday afternoon. Some of them are visiting London for a weekend. Some of, it's different. It's different. So I would say this applies. Okay, Liverpool, you never walk alone. But after that, the away fans are louder. Same for Old Trafford. Obviously, Etihad. Same still applies to Arsenal. Spurs, other than when they sing and the Spurs are marching on, you can't hear them. So, I think this applies to everyone. Maybe it's worse for us than the others. Absolutely fair. But I think the whole dominated by the away fans, that's an issue for everyone, I think. But yeah, I think on that note, Charlie, it's about time to wrap this one up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're still here, I appreciate you very, very much. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and please be sure to subscribe to Charlie. Blue Brother CFC, you can see it on screen. The link is down in the description below. Check out his channel, subscribe to him. That would be massively appreciated. And yeah, of course, check out my Twitter, check out Charlie's Twitter. Like I said, one more time, please do check out my podcast with Pys. Link is down in the description, like I told you. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for watching. Up the Chelsea. Let's hope we get the dub tomorrow. And of course, we will see you next time.